G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and here we go with a couple of races from Daily Race C a few weeks ago. It was the very interesting spicy race of Autodromo del Interlagos circuit in Group 3. We've seen exactly, I counted them up, I actually counted every single one, and it's exactly 1 million times, yeah, this combination. But they spiced us up. Daily Race C, you got 2 mandatory tyre compounds that you have to use, so you have to pit. There's also a range of strategies. The 2-stop can work, the 1-stop can work, or depending on the car, depending on how you drive. But we're going to have a go here. We have chosen a car, it was the top of the leaderboard at the time, the Volkswagen GTI concept, the weird GTI VGT Group 3 Volkswagen. Alternative to the Beetle. It was top of the leaderboard, but it wasn't anywhere else on the top 10, so that's a bit weird, but I went with it. It's actually a decent little car, to be fair, and it felt pretty good around here. A bit oversteery, but it has 7 gears, so it's got some weird gearing. We're going to come through this race now, just warming our tyres down the Riposta, and then we get a little bit of a punt from behind, and you get a 3-second penalty for that one. Lose a couple of positions from that. That was a bit of a weird incident. I wasn't quite sure whether I broke too early or whether he went deep, but then getting onto the power through turns 6 and 7, we touch the grass, fling into a Mercedes who gets himself a 4-second penalty. We turn in and there's just someone with their nose just alongside, get completely spun out. I'm down to the back of the grid. What a disaster, what an absolute disaster to start this one off. We are now at the back of the field. Have a look at the gap there. But starting lap 2, someone takes off their medium tyres, so this BMW going for a 2-stop, and a Mercedes just serving a penalty, and Jocelyn Ghost right on the apex of the corner, unfortunately for us. So we're right up this guy's backside at the moment. He sticks it in the middle of the track. I don't know where to go. He's a bit all over the place. Coming into turn 6, I just touched the back of him going into the corner, and that's a 1-second penalty apparently. It doesn't even give me a reason for it. Look around the outside of the Mercedes going into turn 8. Not quite going to play off there. Into turn 9, line astern through here. Mercedes a little bit wide off the second portion of that corner, and then coming up into turn 10, gap opens up on the inside. I lob it up the inside there. That's quite a decent move, and at a very opportunistic corner. Turn 10 lends itself to overtaking quite heavily at this track here, and we just go into the back of the Porsche. I felt as though he broke early, but once again on the following car. 3-second penalty now, so an additional 2 seconds for that there, even though he didn't lose a position. Also didn't give me a reason once again. So there we go, 3 seconds of penalties I'm going to have to serve on this next lap. So you're beginning to see the overall theme of today's video. And coming into turn 1, we've got the slipstream. I brake slightly too late, swerved to the inside of the Porsche. A little bit of ping issue then, and well, he's gone. I suppose I punted him, I guess, is what happened there. There was no contact made. I didn't get a penalty for it. There was definitely no contact. I didn't feel any force feedback in the wheel when that happened. It also looked like I went halfway alongside him, and then he sort of glitched off the track. That's a bit awkward. We serve that penalty back behind the Mercedes driven by Box here. We're on lap 3 going through turn 11, going to look for a move up onto the Mercedes now. You can see how quickly we close up under braking for turn 12. It's going to give us a nice slipstream run up the main straight here, or I guess the flat out section. It actually contains a couple of corners, turns 13, 14 and 15, but you take it in one smooth, very, very long left-hander. Coming into the first corner, slipstream in the Mercedes there, and we pull to the inside just before our braking point there, just because we were in slipstream. We get it pulled up on the apex of turn 1 nicely. Turn 2, turn 3, that is a successful overtake on the Mercedes. Thank goodness, finally, we actually get something decent done. You can see he is falling way back and isn't quite taking my slipstream. Skip ahead, go past a BMW there into turn 6, a little bit wide off the first one, but that's going to give us a good close run for turn 7, but unfortunately we just run a little bit wide and the car twitches under braking a little bit. We end up even further wide and get ourselves a 1-second penalty. So you can see that one says ignoring the track limit. The penalties for the contacts before didn't even give me a reason. So we're going to serve that on the next lap, along with 3 other cars in my vicinity there, and we get overtaken by the BMW that we drove past. So 4 people with a penalty in the exact same part of the track. Just really going to show what's going on at the back of this field, and you definitely don't want to be at the back. That is the absolute last place you want to be, evidently. The 2 cars running side by side ahead, that's going to be good for us, because they're going to fight a bit. We should hopefully catch back up, which we have quite quickly. The BMW barges that Peugeot out of the way, and we get up the inside of the Peugeot. We're up the inside of the BMW. There's a little bit of ping issue, I would say, once again, and Peugeot comes in, completely wipes out the BMW. There's a little bit of contact between myself and the Peugeot, and we get another 2-second penalty with no reason again. What is going on with this game today? I'm honestly literally on the brink, on the risk of a DR reset. So if your SR goes down far enough, there's a threshold. Your DR and SR, the difference between the two, has a limit. So I think if you go below 50 SR, I think you get reset to 15,000 DR, which is obviously not good. Not what we want to do, seeing as I'm A+ at present moment. We fly down the inside of the Peugeot, make a little bit of contact with one of the Mercedes, but he does keep it on circuit. That one was probably a deserved penalty there. We get up to 5 seconds of penalties. I was very frustrated at this point. I was like 2 seconds off quitting this race, to be honest, but we kept with it. I figured, I've got the penalties, I've got the SR down, not going to put the nail in my own coffin by now quitting, because that will tank me even more SR, which could result in a DR reset. Honestly thought I was going to get one. I will spoil it a little bit, I didn't, but I honestly thought I did, because we've had like 4 contact penalties, a couple of cut tracks. We're also way back in the field after qualifying. I forget what we qualified, I think it was 3rd. But this race is obviously an absolute disaster, and it's really just here to highlight the penalty system. There were a couple of contacts in there that deserved penalties. I'm not, having a go at that, but especially the contact with the Peugeot we had coming out of this corner here a lap ago, that was undeserved. The Peugeot rammed the other car, was offline in a weird manner, and had a little bit of a squirm, as we do in the braking zone for turn 12. Mercedes makes his way past. There was a little bit of contact there. I was afraid of another penalty, but I think we've just about gotten away with that. Right, so the penalty system, awful. This race, awful. My driving at this stage, awful. We can talk about strategy. 1 stop or 2 stop. Obviously, if you start at the front, you want to start on the soft tyres and change to the medium about halfway through. Lap 6, 7 or 8 is pretty good. If you're at the back, start on the medium. If you're stuck in battles and you don't think you're going to win, you can probably go for the 2 stop. So change your medium tyre stint from however long it would have been, 6 or 7 laps, down to 1 lap, and do 2 extra stints, or 1 extra stint, making a total of 2 on the soft tyre. But as we come out of the pits, we catch up to this guy. He's got a 1-bar connection straight from the planet Mars. He's employing tactics that I have no idea. He's obviously hacked the game, modded the game. He's got the teleportation feature. He's all over the place, and I hate racing these guys because you have no idea where they are, and there's a weird mechanic in this game, but not before.
He needs some milk!
He completely bins it into the wall. Right, well, that was easier than anticipated. There's a weird mechanic in this game. If someone's shuffling around like that, they shuffle and touch you and then glitch and shuffle back off the track. The game can think, well, you pushed him off the track, so here's a penalty. So that's why I hate racing them. You also don't know where they are. You could punt them and they could get angry at you and report you, and etc, etc. But we come around, more people coming into the pits. We go past this BMW for about the 8 billionth time in this race here. We're finally setting a purple sector on lap 8. Finally. Purple sector by 0.02 of a second, or 19 milliseconds. Finally. Right, up in 11th, and we finally catch up to the Viper that was just in the distance a moment ago. And we're going to follow this fight with the Viper a little bit. It's not even really a fight. It's just I'm trying to get past him because I'm a lot quicker than these guys at the back. No offense, of course, to these guys at the back, but you can see lap 8, I'm only 1/10 slower than the fastest lap here. So just goes to show that I am a little bit faster than the rest of the field, hence why I qualified up the front of the field and not up the back, or down the back, or at the back, where I am now. To be fair to this Viper driver though, he did keep a very good line around the outside of turns 4 and 5 to see to Dolago, and he is going to remain ahead for the infield section at Interlagos here, comprised of turns 8, 9, 10, 11, but let's have a look as we trundle through turn 9, known as Pinarino, up towards Bigapato, which means duck beak in Portuguese, around there. Nice banking on the inside of that corner, but it does sort of go over a crest on the halfway, sort of in the midline of the track. He gets an oversteer moment into the braking zone. He ends up narrow for turn 12. We're going to get a nice exit, although we do get a little bit of oversteer there. So that's, yeah, one thing with this car, oversteer. You can see the presence of the turbo gauge at the bottom of your screen there indicates this car does have a turbo, so it will be quite oversteery, but you can see we've got the slipstream down the straight, pull to the inside of the Viper. It's taken us a whole lap to get past this one car. Obviously, at that rate, it's going to take us 10 more laps, which isn't ideal, seeing as we only have 4 to go. But we get that move done on the Viper. He was offline as I was in the way for the first Senna S, and he's dropped out of slipstream range already. So we're going to just flash ahead. We're going to go in for our last stop. We actually did the 2 stop in this race because we were at the back anyway. But as it turns out, we go onto the medium tyre, of course, for the last lap. We exit the pits in 13th. So yeah, obviously the 2 stop, you're not going to win on a 2 stop. It's mainly just so you can fight and have a bit more of a race. He came out in 12th, and that's ultimately where we finished. So what an absolute crap race that was. I wanted to quit, but I managed to get some consistent laps in at the end. I guess only 36 seconds off the lead. It could be a lot worse. Could be 37 seconds, which is worse than 36, but 12th, you know, nothing to write home about. SR went down to about 81 or something. Not great. Yeah. You can see my R4M driver looking on in disappointment at the Volkswagen GTI. But we move on. We're going to have another race. We're going to try and recover. Of course, our SR has gone down quite significantly. Not significantly enough to impact our DR. But we're going to have a go at another race here. You can see on the grid, actually, SR is A, which means we've gone under 80 SR out of 99. That's the lowest I've been in a while. So, obviously, we're in a lower level lobby. We put it on pole position with my qualifying time. We have a McLaren F1 behind. That poses an interesting dynamic for this race. It's going to be absolutely rapid down the straights, but crap in the middle sector. So, you definitely don't want to be stuck behind the McLaren going through the infield section here at Interlagos, but it could very well be the case, seeing as you've got the middle sector is sandwiched by power sections, power sectors of the circuit. So let's have a look. Look at the McLaren F1 behind, immediately go defensive. I know, McLaren F1 plus slipstream, you might as well be racing a completely different class. It's that quick down the straight. But we managed to keep ahead, going through turn 4. But you can see a little bit of an uphill power section just before we enter the infield. And you can see he's got a little bit of an overlap on my left-hand side. I try to keep it tight through turn 6, but he just gives me a little bit of a love tap there. And I end up a little bit wider than I would like. I wasn't able to quite park it on the apex as I would like. And the McLaren F1 just levers his way through and up the inside at turn 8. So I am now behind the McLaren F1. The only sort of relieving factor of this particular situation here is that I now have the slipstream down the straight. This Volkswagen is actually quite solid in a straight line, to be fair to it. So given that it would have the slipstream as we go for a little bit of an awkward look up the inside there, and it just gives us a poor run. Obviously, differing lines by different drivers. I like to stop it on the apex and punch it out. Obviously, he wanted to take a wider line. We're now under attack from the Subaru. But as I was saying, with slipstream, this car can actually achieve quite high top speeds. The McLaren F1, nothing can touch that, but I might have been able to sort of stick within quite close range of the McLaren if I didn't completely mess up turn 12. But you can see going through Senna S, we have aptly demonstrated for us the downfall of the McLaren F1. It doesn't turn in. I drove this car for, or the McLaren F1, I drove it for a FIA manufacturer's exhibition season. Really understeery. Like, it's an MR car, you would expect it to want to just turn. The back end would have been loose. It was so stiff, so difficult to turn, and it honestly was pretty bad at some circuits like Dragon Trail. It was awful at, it wasn't too bad at Fuji, but Dragon Trail in particular was terrible. So the car through the middle sector is not going to be great. Demonstrated here as I'm looking completely around the outside, but then he just edges us off the track in a very unsportsmanlike move, and we just lose a further position to the Subaru, and the McLaren gets himself a 2-second penalty. That is a actual situation of the penalty system working quite correctly. You can see I'm 1.1 seconds behind the lead of the McLaren F1. He got a 2-second penalty, therefore the length of the penalty matches about how much time I probably lost by that, and exceeds it by a little bit to penalise the driver for actually edging me out. Subaru down the straight, crap, so I'm not too worried about that. It's going to be good in the middle sector, but I feel as though this car is fairly solid too, but we just have an assault from Peugeot RCZ behind, heading up the main straight. It doesn't quite go for the move. It actually keeps it quite wide and doesn't quite turn in until very late in the corner. If you're looking down on the radar to have a look at the body language of the Peugeot there. McLaren F1 just coming up to serve its penalty here, halfway down the Rita Aposta. Heading up towards turn 4. Let's have a look. Are we going to be able to get past the McLaren? Just on the braking zone, we make our way past. Lovely stuff. Beautiful. Just behind the Subaru. It's going to be good in this middle sector. Very good handling car, that. But it's going to be terrible down the straight. But I anticipate, once again, that I'm going to be faster than the majority of the field here, the Subaru driver included. Just because I qualified first, I'm higher rated than really what should be in this lobby. I'm only here because of the penalties, really. Obviously, I did have some very dodgy driving in the previous race, but penalties, regardless of how you get them, will tank your SR. So that's why I find myself here, down in the Rammer Club, basically. Speaking of, Rammer, give me the money. Ran for money. Show me the money. But heading up onto the main straight now, about a second behind the Subaru, we get a little bit of a better exit than him. You can see the time gap between us just coming down ever so slightly. We're not in slipstream yet. We've got about 1.5 tenths of gap remaining between us before I get the effects of slipstream. But coming up towards the line, 8.5 tenths, 8 tenths, 7 tenths. We just touch slipstream range by the end of the straight, and as a result, we run a little bit wide, a little bit deep, a little bit wide into turn 1 there. That's obviously not good. But it just goes to show I was a second behind coming out of the final main corner, the final real corner of the circuit. And yeah, the final real corner of the circuit, and I went into slipstream range. I gained 3 tenths on the straight just by virtue of having a car that's better in a straight line, or I guess having a car that isn't a Subaru. But we are now in the slipstream of the Subaru, which is excellent. It's going to be good for the next long straight portion. We've got a little bit of a straight here towards turn 6, which should get us a little bit closer to the Subaru, build a little bit of a buffer for us to lose time through the middle sector where the Subaru is likely going to be stronger than my Volkswagen here, which is good. 8 tenths behind at this point, but on the exit of that corner, getting back into slipstream range, so I'm sort of hovering right on the brink of it, which is honestly fine. I know this car can catch up a little bit of a gap if it has a little bit of a deficit before the slipstream range against the Subaru. I'm confident this car can catch that gap back up in order to get back into the slipstream. Going to demonstrate that here, punch it on the exit, a little bit of curb. Lovely, look at that, 6 tenths behind. That's going to be very good in terms of a move. Coming into turn 1 here, on lap 4, so no pit stops just yet, but you can see rather straight portion, no turning now, it's all slipstream, up towards, straight under the rear wing of the Subaru, and we hit our braking point nicely. Going to pull it up on the apex of turn 1, look at that, beautiful, absolute textbook move, textbook slipstream move there, obviously aided by my advantageous top speed, but that Subaru is going to be on the back foot down the straights. Now, he will have my slipstream, so he could potentially, you know, be able to keep in close quarters behind. But we're just going to have to keep an eye on that gap there, heading through turn 4. We both ran a little bit wide through turn 4, but brought it back. Turn 5 was lovely. He's about 4 tenths behind now, coming into the middle sector. I expect him to gain a little bit here, so 4 tenths coming in. Let's have a look. He's down into the radar, which means under 3 tenths, and has a little bit of a look into turn 8, actually. He just sort of dove into the radar there. Keep it nice and tight. No opportunity for a move up in turn 9, and we're just wary of a move here. 4 tenths behind. It's going to be a little bit far back to go for a move. He just closes up right underneath, or right behind us, pretty much kissing our rear bumper through the apex of turn 10 as we go for the exit speed rather than the entry speed. I feel as though you gain more time from taking a tight or taking a wider line in and a later apex through turn 10, which is what I like to do. On the straight, 3 tenths behind. He's still losing time down this straight, and I'll go very far over to the left. I'll go far left, and he doesn't quite take the slipstream perfectly. He was only about halfway in it as well. So he didn't get the full slipstream effects down the straight, perhaps thinking I might have gone into the pit lane. That, of course, is coming up in a couple of laps' time, as lap 6 kind of marks the beginning of the laps you can come in on, although we did have someone go in on the end of lap 5. That's a little bit early in terms of that soft tyre, unless you're going for a 2-stop. But we are in the lead. We're going for a 1-stop. We're going for a race win, of course. Coming into turn 4, I run a little bit wide, a little bit deep, and if we have a look behind, Subaru way off, right on the edge of the curb there. He's actually followed me off, so that is something you potentially see more often in lower level lobbies, is cars following each other off the track. But we skip ahead to the end of lap 8. We went for 8 laps on the soft, quite a long stint. You really wouldn't want to go any longer than 8 laps, as I felt I was probably losing more time on the 8th lap of soft than I would with an extra lap or medium. Anyway, but we went for the 8 laps. Coming out of the pit lane, I haven't fast forwarded this one, as you can see, just rounding the first corner as we're going down the hill through Centre S, or the pit lane portion of Centre S. First place, first position, an Aston Martin V12 Vantage is what is coming around the exit of turn 3 down the Rita Reposto. He just completely cut the pit lane line there, and you can see he goes immediately defensive, half onto the grass there. That was a very aggressive defence, and that just puts me on edge a little bit. He defended so aggressively there. I'm 7 tenths behind, and I was coming out of the pit lane. There was no way I was going to be able to overtake him coming into turn 4. So that aggressive defense just puts me, makes me a little bit wary of coming up against this driver. Potentially could be quite a hot-headed fellow. But the Aston Martin is actually fairly good in a straight line too. So it's really probably going to be a battle of slipstream. And depending on the pace, depending on how many stops this guy's done, might be fairly difficult to get past him. But as we rounding Magulo, coming up towards Hunkau, braking point is just the start. There's a particular patch of grass just right as the dirt is transitioning to grass, just before the 50-metre board. That's what I'm using as a braking point, and you can see he keeps it quite tight, heading through turn 14. Up the straight, over to the left-hand side. He's going to the pits. Nope, he's just defending aggressively once again. 6 tenths behind him. He switches over to the right. So he's quite erratic in his movements, which definitely makes me wary here. We catch up right in braking there, and then here gets so awkward. He just completely slows down. I don't know what happened, whether there was a bit of lag or whether he got some oversteer, but it looked like he just broke. He just stopped. I've gone through the clip slowly. I can't quite make out if his brake lights turn on. So I don't know about that, but we managed to nip just up the inside through turn 3 there, and we get the lead. He loses slipstream too, so if that was a potentially dodgy move, then yeah, it just puts the icing on the cake that he would try a brake check halfway through a corner. It was really a mistake-free run, except for a penalty at turn 2 of one of the laps, which you serve on the following lap, but it was really nothing to jeopardise my race win. A comfortable 12-second victory there. The V12 Vantage actually stayed in second, but I don't know, I'm a little bit questioning his manoeuvres there. That was, can't get over how dodgy that move was at turn 3, but we got past anyway. There was just enough room. A Volkswagen GTI VGT sized gap left by the brake checker, or potential brake checker, and we managed to get past for the victory. But there we go. I hope you enjoyed that one. Obviously a bit of a penalty showcase, that one. Also a bit of a bad driving showcase by myself. But as you can see, we can race when we're actually surrounded by people that are interested. That's in their mind. They want to try and progress through the field and not fight for every single position, which is what I felt like was going on in the first race, and I was just stuck in it. There was awkward contacts and penalties, and frustration led to actual mistakes and actual penalties. But yeah, just goes to show how quickly a race can go downhill, which is what happened there. But I'm glad we managed to finish off the video with a solid race, solid victory, and some actually good racing in there considering I was in a lower level lobby. But do hit that like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's on the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.